You know that moment when you set 10 alarms, download 3 productivity apps, promise yourself this time will be different, and somehow you're still watching videos at 1:13 a.m. while eating something that definitely wasn't supposed to be dinner? That quiet negotiation you have with yourself, just 5 more minutes, happens more often than we like to admit. We all imagine discipline as something reserved for ultra-focused people who wake up at sunrise and somehow enjoy cold showers. Meanwhile, you might just want to stop procrastinating for a week. So, I decided to try something extreme. 30 days of strict self-discipline. Fixed wake times, structured work blocks, no impulsive scrolling, daily workouts, the whole transformation fantasy. And what happened wasn't what productivity culture promises. Because extreme discipline doesn't just change your routine, it exposes how your mind actually works. Beneath motivation, resistance, and burnout are psychological patterns you might recognize in yourself, maybe more than you expect, maybe even uncomfortably so, like seeing your habits reflected back at you in slow motion. The first version of me that showed up was the motivated sprinter. The experiment began with cinematic energy. Day 1 felt effortless. I woke up before the alarm, wrote ambitious to-do lists, cleaned spaces I'd ignored for months, and felt strangely proud of my newfound life order. You know that feeling, the new notebook, new life energy, where everything seems possible and your future self suddenly looks incredibly organized. Psychologically, this phase runs on novelty dopamine. The brain loves beginnings because they signal change without yet demanding proof. Motivation surges because the future feels open and exciting, but motivation is emotional fuel, not structural fuel. Around day 4, the excitement faded. The alarm sounded harsher. The workouts felt heavier. The checklist stopped feeling inspiring and started feeling demanding. If you've ever started something strong and then mysteriously lost momentum, you weren't failing, you were transitioning from motivation to consistency. A shift most people never notice happening. That's often the moment when self-doubt quietly sneaks in and whispers that maybe you were never disciplined to begin with, even though nothing about you actually changed overnight. Then came the control architect. When discipline started feeling difficult, I assumed the solution was more structure. I added timers, strict schedules, website blockers, and perfectly planned routines. Every hour had a purpose. Decisions disappeared because everything was pre-decided. And for a while, productivity skyrocketed. This revealed something important. Discipline isn't mostly about willpower. It's about reducing decisions. Every choice drains mental energy. So when your environment removes options, resistance drops. Psychologists call this lowering cognitive load. But here's the twist. Too much control creates fragility. One unexpected disruption threw off the schedule, and suddenly everything felt broken. Missing one task felt like failure. The stricter the system became, the less flexible I felt. Our brains resist rigid control because humans aren't machines. When discipline turns into perfectionism, small deviations feel like identity threats. You may have felt this yourself, the strange rebellion that appears when your own rules become too tight. That's psychological reactance. Your mind pushing back against restriction, even when the restriction comes from you. Almost like an inner protest demanding breathing room and spontaneity. Somewhere in week 3, something quieter emerged. The identity shifter. Up to this point, discipline felt forced, like dragging myself through behaviors. But after repeating the same actions long enough, a subtle change happened. I stopped asking whether I felt like doing things. I simply did them. Morning routines required less negotiation. Work sessions started automatically. Exercise stopped feeling optional. Psychology explains this through identity formation. When behaviors repeat consistently, the brain updates its internal story about who you are. Instead of relying on motivation, actions align with self-image. The mental debate disappears. Think about brushing your teeth. You don't need motivation because it's part of who you are. The fascinating part was that tasks didn't become physically easier. They became mentally unquestioned. Discipline began to feel less like effort and more like normal life, almost invisible in its consistency. Maybe lasting change isn't about forcing behavior, but about slowly becoming the kind of person for whom that behavior feels natural, steady, and quietly reliable. Then came the biggest surprise of the experiment, the compassion convert. You'd expect peak discipline to mean maximum toughness, but around day 25, I felt emotionally tired from constant self-monitoring. Every action had been evaluated and optimized. Then one morning, I overslept. Normally, that would trigger frustration and the familiar "I ruined everything" spiral. But instead, I adjusted the day calmly and continued. Oddly, consistency improved afterward. Research shows self-compassion strengthens long-term discipline more than self-criticism. When we punish mistakes, the brain associates effort with stress and avoidance. When we respond with flexibility, behavior feels safer to continue. Harsh discipline works briefly. Compassionate discipline lasts. The goal isn't perfect control. It's the ability to recover quickly when life interrupts, energy drops, or motivation simply disappears without warning, which it inevitably does and always has for every human trying to improve. By the end of the 30 days, my routine looked less extreme than it did at the beginning. Some rules softened, while certain habits stayed permanently. The biggest change wasn't external productivity, but internal stability. I stopped waiting to feel motivated. I stopped interpreting setbacks as failure. Discipline stopped feeling like a personality trait other people were born with, and started feeling like a psychological skill, something shaped by environment, identity, and self-talk. Extreme discipline didn't turn me into a different person. It showed me how my brain negotiates effort, comfort, and change, and how much of behavior is guided by invisible mental narratives we rarely question, yet follow every single day without noticing. So maybe discipline isn't about becoming relentlessly strict. Maybe it's about understanding which phase you're in. You might be the motivated sprinter riding the excitement of a new start, or the control architect trying to engineer perfection, or the identity shifter quietly building consistency, or the compassion convert, learning how to continue without punishment. Each stage feels different, but all of them are part of the same process, and none of them mean you're failing or falling behind compared to others who seem more consistent from the outside. Which one sounds most like you right now? Are you at the exciting beginning, the frustrating middle, or that quiet point where change starts to feel natural? Think about how you respond when motivation fades or when you slip up. That reaction might reveal more about your discipline than any productivity system ever could. And if this made you see your own habits differently, stay curious, because understanding how your mind works may be the most powerful form of self-discipline you'll ever develop. Long after any 30-day challenge ends, and long after motivation fades, leaving only the habits you chose to keep and the mindset you decided to carry forward, shaping future choices. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. Subscribe to the channel for more videos like this. Hit the like button if this helped you.